Chordplay was the Chords of Linkin Park, and Linkin Park formed in Agora Hills, California in 1996 and went on to become one of the most popular bands of the 21st century. And I didn't realize that until I did the research for this episode. I mean, I knew Linkin Park was popular, but they're up there with Adele and Eminem and some of those artists, and I was really impressed and blown away. And their very popular album Hybrid Theory came out in October of 2000, but it wasn't until 2001 when it really blew wide open. And I distinctly remember I was teaching in Evansville, Indiana at the time, and I had a bunch of students in 2001 that were bringing in this, CD from Linkin Park, and I thought, who is this Linkin Park? And then I noticed, there were certain things the guitarist, Brad Delson did, and I really liked the way they orchestrated their guitar parts. So while there aren't, flashy guitar solos and shredding, there's this really interesting kind of distorted, power chord and octave and harmonic texture. The way Brad kind of presents his guitar parts is really inspiring and different. And I like that, where it's not the typical approach. And as far as Brad's habits as a guitarist, he does a lot of stacked power chords, there's a lot of octaves, and I like the way he kind of mixes octaves and power chords together, where you have this kind of airy, almost transparent sound. And he also uses harmonics a lot too. So these stacked power chords have come up in other episodes on this channel. And with the opening there, I was basically playing a B5, like a B power chord. And then I'm also doubling that with that F sharp in the bass right there. So it's like a B5 over F sharp. But I just nicknamed those stacked power chords. They have this huge, ginormous kind of sound. So that's a 3-note stacked power chord. We've got F sharp, B, and F sharp right there. Right? And then we can actually double that and we can do a 4-note version where we've got F sharp, B, F sharp, B. So it's the same 2 notes, just stacked. You can definitely find both versions of that chord in Linkin Park's music. The regular stacked, 3 notes, and then the really fat stack with 4 notes. And then you'll also find a lot of octaves in his music, mixed with those power chords. And then, like I mentioned, also harmonics. So definitely something you need to watch out for when you're studying Linkin Park's music. Alright, with the opening that's Somewhere I Belong from Meteora, and this is actually just tuned down a half step, and typically in Linkin Park's music you'll find a lot of half step down and drop D. So this example is just regular half step down, and the last example is regular half step down, and then everything in the middle of this lesson is a half step down and drop D. Just a heads up. But guitar 1's basically just bashing these stacked power chords, and we've got a B5 over F sharp right there. That's going to move up to a D5 over A. And then you're going to hike all the way up to this G5 over D, and then an E over B right there. You're going to repeat that cycle, the B5 over F sharp, D5 over A. And then you're just going to shift over here and grab an A5, and then end with E5. And you're just banging these out like this. As I am to do all downstrokes, I don't think he's actually doing downstrokes for that riff. I think he's actually just kind of strumming it, like back and forth, pendulum style, like that. With that are octaves up on top. So that first guitar part I'm going to loop with the TC Electronic Ditto looper like this. going to basically combine that with these octaves. So you're technically doing like a D sharp to an E, and then F sharp back to that E, and then the D sharp to C sharp to B. So you're doing this melody. Mixed with those chords, it sounds really cool, and I love the way the octaves and the chords kind of mix together like this. For another taste of these stacked power chords and also some harmonics thrown in, check out the outro of the same song, Somewhere I Belong, and you'll hear this really aggressive part like this. Something like that, and you're just banging on that B5 over F sharp like this. And then you hear a single, 7th fret harmonic right there on the low E string. And I like the way, especially in this time period, with bands like Linkin Park, and there was Stained, and Incubus, and a bunch of groups that used harmonics really creatively. And this is really just an abrasive kind of texture sound. And just 4 hits on that harmonic. For another example of this octave and power chord mix, check out the song Easier to Run, which is also from Meteora, and you'll hear this. And I'm going to loop this part too, because there's power chords and octaves combined, but like this. Guitar 1 was just basically, bashing these power chords, and now we're tuned down a half step and in drop D, just a heads up on the tuning there. But it's going to start with this E5 right there, just the 2nd fret bar. Then you're going to move up to this, and that's basically a C5 right there, a C power chord, and since we're in drop D, now that's a G right there on the 5th fret, so it's C5 over G. That up a whole step, and there's D5 over A right there. And then move down, and you're going to grab this B5 over F sharp right there. And you loop it. Together are these octaves, and you're really just going to do 3 sets of this E octave right there over the first 3 chords, and then on the last chord you move to F sharp. So that first series, all 3 of those chords are kind of sharing that E kind of mutual note, which is so cool, like this. That octave is kind of influenced by the chords, and vice versa, the chords are influenced by that octave. Really cool. The song Lying From You, which is also from Meteora, also uses power chords and octaves together, but this time we're doing them in the same riff, so it's just one guitar playing this. But something like this. Bang on this E5, and once again we're down a half step and in drop D for this one, but we've got this, and then this series of octaves, F sharp to D to E, and then right there you're basically basically playing this. So that's a D5 over G right there, which is really unusual. Fretting that A note right there, so that's just D5 after that, after the octaves. And then right there you're going to do this stack power chord here, so there's, C5 over G. Then you want to repeat those octaves again. And then right there it's just an A5 to a D5, open up the open strings. Next up is Papercut, the opening track from Hybrid Theory, and we're still tuned down a half step and in drop D. And the song opens with this Halloween kind of Michael Myers sounding riff, and then it starts doing power chords and opens the song. Something like this. Something like that. Basically, this first little part, it's like Crazy Train, like in another dimension or something. So we're still, tuned down a half step and then drop D. And as far as the chords here, after that kind of opening riff, you've got this. Right there, it's the low strings open, so that's a D power chord. And then right there, you're doing this. So you're barring the 8th fret there on the bottom strings, and also grabbing the 10th fret there on the G, and that's going to be a B flat 5, just a B flat power chord. But fretted and played in an unusual way because of the tuning. Put that down a half step, and there's an A5 waiting right there. And then you're going to move all the way down to the 3rd fret, but you're also going to change the chord. Like that, and that's basically a C5 over F, because there's your C power chord, but then you're playing that F note on the bottom. So right there you've got, it's a 4-chord progression, but the open strings is the D, there's the B flat 5, A5 to C5 over F, technically. Right there is just, 1-finger power chords down there. E flat 5 to F5 partials. Then you hear the verse kind of start there. Now the bridge from Papercut has some twists to these power chords, and we're still tuned down a half step and then drop D, but something like this. Basically, we're playing sus2 chords, very popular chords that have appeared on other, episodes on this channel. And I love these chords. But in this tuning, we're basically down a half step and then drop D. We can find those chords like this. Kind of like the one-fingered bar, but then you're adding, this additional note right there on the D string. But just think of those stretch, sus2 chords. Now I can't really reach the G, without doing this, because of the tuning. But you can hear it's the same chords. Right? And you're just banging on them. You got this kind of heavy groove. The last example is pretty special. This is the song She Couldn't, which is a bonus track from the 20th anniversary, release of Hybrid Theory. So it was an unreleased song, but they recently released it. I think it was last year. And this is down a half step, but we're just in regular, down a half step tuning. We're not in drop D. It's something like this. It's pretty cool. It's actually a good workout, like kind of a warm-up or a stretching exercise, and we're starting with this E sus2. And that basically is kind of going back to an implied E7 right there. Like that. And then right there you're going to actually grab this D note and you're going to change the bass note. You're going to grab that D and also keep that B right there. And then you're going to move to this. That's basically a C5 right there. There's a C and a G and then an octave of that G right there. So it's kind of keeping that sus2 shape, but it's modified just a little bit. And then right there you're going to change the D major. So really slow right there. That's the first pass. Again with that E sus2, and then right there just stay on that E7 kind of implied, and then you're going to go up to this G sus2, a little piece of D, and then right there you're going to grab this G and then grab that E and you start it over. And when you grab that E, it kind of slides off and he's going back to that E sus2 right there. Guitar part, and it's a lot harder to play than you might think. Until you really get in there and try it, then you'll realize, like, man, that's pretty tough. All right, that's gonna wrap this episode of Chordplay with the Chords of Linkin Park. And when I realized it was technically like the 21st or 20th anniversary of Hybrid Theory just blowing up, it really did take me back in time, and I remembered like where I was, who I was teaching, the lessons that kind of popped up, and there was a ton of Linkin Park, happening for me and my students back in 2001. So it was kind of nostalgic to kind of think about that, and it's like, yeah, this band was all over the place, at that time. So anyway, rest in peace, Chester Bennington, and leave some feedback and comments, and subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.